This is Golden Years, a roadmap to navigate retirement with Mark Cordner, the podcast.
Oh, our friends at the Fed, they're always, doing something, trying to keep up with them. And because you brought them up, I guess I'll bring them into the show here. Because the Fed Reserve, they're continuing its pause on interest rates. That leaves 4 meetings left for them to do any kind of rate cutting this year. Economist Lauren Goodwin tells CNBC that the Fed will do as little as possible for as long as possible.
The Fed can only do so much to tackle things like changes in trade policy, changes in the political environment, geopolitics playing a bigger role in inflation expectations as an example. And so the only thing that the Fed can do is look at its tools related to interest rates and decide whether it can move the needle on inflation expectations. It's an uncomfortable position for investors and for the Fed as well to have to wait and see how the data evolves, but we expect them to try to buy that time.
Yeah, this whole wait and see thing, I'm not a very patient person to begin with, Mark. So when someone tells me to wait and see, not so good for me, especially if I'm going to be close to retirement. I don't have that luxury anymore, right? Time is running out. So how do you help clients tune out all this economic noise and really focus on things that they can control?
Well, I think it's really taking the big picture, and I say kudos to you, for being impatient, because we lose far more through inactivity than we do through perhaps a wrong choice, because wrong choices are relative, right? I mean, it's not earth-shattering if you make an investment and you could have made 0.1% more if you had waited 3 months. That's not life-ending. But if you had waited 6 or 12 or 24 or 36 months to act because you were trying to second-guess what the Federal Reserve is going to do or how they're going to respond to Trump's criticisms and yada, 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 well, then you're never going to get ahead. So life rewards action. I'm a firm believer in this. And so let's take control of what we can control, and let's not lose sleep over the things we can't control. We make the best decisions we can make today based upon the best opportunities that are available today, and then we don't second-guess ourselves. We move forward, and we progress based upon what we can control.
When it comes to talking about your finances, your retirement, there's lots of moving parts, right? You'll hear about them all the time. Your IRA, your 401k, your personal savings, what have you, if you're lucky enough to have a pension. But everyone's wondering what's the best, the most valuable. Well, I read an article on Bankrate.com, and they actually called the Roth IRA the MVP of retirement savings. It talked about the after-tax contributions and tax-free withdrawals. However, the Roth actually has limitations. The amount you can contribute declines and is eventually eliminated at a certain level of income, and the money has to sit for like 5 years before you can access it. So how can you work around these limits, Mark, to make your Roth a retirement MVP?
Well, there's a lot of things we can do, and I would say the bigger picture isn't just the Roth. I mean, I'm a total addict when it comes to Roth IRA plan, and I just love it because it is a most valuable player, as it were, but it's one of the most valuable players. I wouldn't say it is the most valuable player. What I would say is most important, though, is tax-free planning, because that's really what the Roth is about, is how do we get future income to be tax-free? In other words, legally off the radar of the government. So we're not advocating spending less in retirement. We're simply saying let's spend from sources that the government's not looking at, that they're not taxing. And the Roth IRA is the most accessible tool for your average American. And that's why they put limits on it. I mean, any good thing the government's going to limit, right? That's just the nature of government. And so if you're not taking advantage of the Roth IRA or the Roth 401k or the Roth 403b or one of its many iterations, then you're probably missing out. Most Americans are firmly convinced that tax rates are going to have to go up simply as a function of the national debt and the fact that our entitlement programs like Social Security and Medicare are underfunded. And so anything we can do to avoid those future tax increases, we should do. And the Roth IRA is the first on the list. It's by far the easiest to get into. But as you pointed out, many high-income earners cannot participate in the Roth IRA. There's a phase-out that happens, and this is very common with professional people. So I would say there's 2 things that they should do. Number 1 is start thinking about your retirement plans differently. Start thinking about your traditional pre-tax 401k or IRA as a conduit, because pretty much everyone can do those things, and you can then convert your pre-tax into after-tax Roth IRA status later. It can get you to tax-free. Sometimes it takes 2 steps rather than 1 step, but we can get you there. I mean, one of the things that high-income earners do, and we have lots of clients who do this, is they will look at maximum funding life insurance, cash value life insurance products. And there's some very good products out there, Indexed Universal Life in particular, that have very competitive rates of return. I mean, we're often talking about averages that, depending on the product, can be 6 to 9% in that range. 7 to 9 is very common. So great rates of return, but a place where high-income earners can grow, access, and transfer money on a tax-free basis. Some people call it the Super Roth IRA. I don't use that language, but some people do. But the idea is there are multiple ways to grow money so that you have future tax-free income sources. And so as to the idea of the Roth being the most valuable player, I would say it is a very valuable player. I wouldn't call it most. I would call tax-free planning the most important component. Yeah, matter of fact, that reminds me of actually a couple different households we've met with just in the last few weeks. One of them came in from the radio show, and they've done a great job preparing for retirement, but all of their money is in taxable accounts. And they understood from what they had heard from me previously that they can get that money legally off the radar tax-free. And we were able to show them how they can literally save hundreds of thousands of dollars in taxes over the next 30 to 40 years that they expect to live in retirement. That's not uncommon. Tens of thousands, and in some cases hundreds of thousands of dollars of savings. We can show people pretty easily. We've got the tools for that. We've got the training for that. What we don't have is your personal information. So come visit with us and we can do a customized plan for you. We can show you how to legally get off the tax radar. Now, notice I keep emphasizing the word legal. We have to be honest in all of our dealings, of course. That is the foundational principle of life. We have to be honest. But there are ways to do this. The government has given us ways to get off the tax radar. And often that means volunteering to pay taxes now when they're in a historically low rate so that we can avoid the increased taxes that are coming later. So come visit with us. We can show you. We can actually map out if you do this versus that, ABC, XYZ, whatever scenarios you want to call it. We can show you the tax savings under those different scenarios, and you decide how you want to go forward. If you think Uncle Sam's doing such a great job that you want to tip him, give him extra money, well, power to you. But as for me and my family, I would rather keep those monies in my family for family experiences. For my kids and, God willing, future grandchildren, that's where I want my resources to go for those memories. And so let's get you off the tax radar legally.
Blue-collar comedy alum Bill Engvall, he retired about 2 years ago from stand-up, and it's been long enough that he feels qualified to offer these tips.
Number one, you're going to find that you have a lot of time on your hands. Now, I thought that meant I'd have more time for golf or fishing or whatever I love to do. But as it turns out, it's just more time for me to spend with my wife, like driving her to the hair salon, driving her to the nail salon, or just doing things together like talking to the grocery store shopping cart guy. I know his name now. Why? Because I've had to drive my wife to the grocery store so many more times. So as you go through retirement, remember this. You have a lot of time, but it's not yours. Happy retirement.
I can only imagine what his wife has to say about him. You know what I mean?
Well, I'm glad he likes her enough to go with her. I mean, at the end of the day, that's the most important thing. During our working years, we don't get that much time together. This makes me think of my dad. I laugh sometimes when I once asked him, how did you ever have time to be employed? Because after he retired, between my mom and my sisters, they kept him so busy with a honey-do list. But, of course, he was happy with that. And, each to their own, as they say. Retirement's often not exactly what we expect. And so we just have to prepare and we have to make our plans. This is, some of the very first concepts I bring up in the adult education classes we teach for free at the college locally. Is I talk to them about, what is it you're trying to go towards. We all know what we're trying to get away from in terms of the ugliness of work or the stupid boss, stupid colleagues, whatever, But what are we headed towards? That's the big question. And if we don't have clarity as to what we're trying to do in the future, then, that vacuum is going to be filled by other people. or you're going to end up just sitting on the couch channel surfing, which, of course, is not productive at all. So I'm a big advocate of, it's the first homework assignment I give people in the classes is spend some time writing out how will you spend your days, literally. I know for myself, for example, this last week I was away from the office. I was out of state, and I was able to go to one of my favorite libraries. I would be very, very happy spending 80% of my time in the public and university libraries because that's something I enjoy. I get a lot of satisfaction out of it. That doesn't cost a lot. But if I don't make those commitments in advance, other people will take claim on my time. And so we have to decide, how do you want to spend your days? What are you moving towards? What is it that gives your life meaning and purpose? And so there's volunteer work that I like doing. That's, I'm going to have a schedule when I go into retirement. There will still be structure to my life. It's just going to be things that give me joy and meaning beyond what work gave me. I love what I do.
Sure.
But I want to have a season of life where I'm able to focus on the things that give me the greatest personal joy for me and my family. And so, plan ahead. Don't let other people decide it for you. Otherwise, you're going to be schlepping your wife to the grocery store, and you're just going to be the Uber driver for the family, as it were. Whatever. Love Bill Engvall. What a great comedian.
Oh, my gosh. Great comedian, great guy. But he has a great point there. Making sure everybody's on the same page, because his idea for retirement was doing things he wants to do, go fishing, hang out with the guys, whatever. Turns out her idea of his retirement is carting her around. So as you mentioned here, it's like one of the first homework assignments you have is sitting down with your spouse and having, quote, the talk. What do you want to do in retirement? What do I want to do in retirement? So as you see here, it really does go past the facts, the figures, the math, making sure that everything works there. It's, oh, by the way, what are we going to do with our hard-earned money and our hard-earned time that we've earned together?
I love the way you say that, because it's really not about the money. It's not about the math. That work has to be done. Money is just fuel. But if I want to get to a destination, I have to have enough fuel to get me there. But the first thing I needed to do is decide, what's the destination I want to get to? What's the experience I want to have? And then we figure out how the fuel fits into that. So yes, we've got to deal with those things. But the big work is the non-financial work. And that is, what do I want my life to be about?
And as we just talked about here, yes, the math, the facts, the figures, those have to be figured out. They have to be dealt with. Obviously, income, as you said, and money is the fuel to retirement. It's the name of the game. And, of course, every year we do a story about how much, quote, they say you need to retire. And for the first time in recent memory, that number has actually dropped. Last year, it was 1.46 million. This year, and by the way, this is according to Northern Mutual Study, it's 1.26 million. You ask yourself why? Well, inflation's come down just a little bit. So should people feel better about their retirement possibilities today than they did this time last year?
Ooh, I would say don't get suckered into that kind of thinking. Please, please, please don't. Because every year those kind of studies are going to change. And no, there is no magic number. There is no magic bullet that's going to solve every person's problems. Everyone's different. We've got to recognize that. And as I've said, I could spend my days in a library and be totally happy. That doesn't cost a lot. But if I was trying to golf every single day, that could be extremely expensive over time. So you've really got to get clarity as to what is your life going to be about. I always say everyone can retire if they're willing to live on what they have. The better question is, what are your expectations? Once we clarify what your expectations are, then we can quantify how much money is needed to support those expectations. And you may be totally fine. Or you may need to revise your expectations based upon the assets that you have. Maybe that means working a little bit longer. Maybe it means taking on a part-time job, phasing into a different, less stressful kind of part-time work, perhaps. There are as many different ways to achieve this as there are people. And so I would beg people, please don't think in terms of that quick, easy answer. Ignore those kind of studies. They may address the average person's situation, but none of us is average. We're each individual, and God made us that way. There's as many solutions as there are people. So if you need help, we're here for you.
Investment advisory services offered through Golden Years Financial LLC, a registered investment advisory firm. Insurance is offered through Golden Years Insurance Services. These firms do not provide legal or tax advice. Consult your own legal and tax advisors before taking actions that may have tax implications. Investing in securities involves risk, including the potential loss of principal. Insurance contracts' principal protection is based on the claim-paying ability of the respective insurer. None of the information contained on this website shall constitute an offer to sell or solicit to buy a security or insurance product. The information and opinions contained on this site or requested from this site are provided by third parties believed to be reliable, but accuracy and completeness cannot be guaranteed. They are provided for informational purposes only and are not a solicitation to buy or sell any of the products mentioned. Any media logos and or trademarks contained herein are the property of their respective owners, and no endorsement by those owners of Mark Cordner, Golden Years Financial, or Golden Years Insurance is stated or implied.